Good morning. Welcome to the January 7th, 2025 meeting for the Board of Desert Water Agency. I'm calling this meeting to order. I ask that those who are in the room today with us to please silence your electronic devices, and those that are participating virtually to keep your microphone muted until and unless you're ready to speak. And with that, we could move to before we do the roll call, I will call on directors in the following roll call order as currently it stands, which is Directors Gracia, Director Bloomer, Secretary Treasurer McKenna, Vice President Bowman, and President Ortega, and votes will be conducted via roll call. And with that, I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Right, so we can proceed to item 3, which is the roll call. Ms. Baca, would you mind?
Director Gracia's absence is noted. Director Bloomer,
Present.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Present.
Vice President Bowman,
Here.
and President Ortega.
Present. All right, now we can move to item 4, which is election of board officers for the coming year.
I'd like to propose we adjourn that till the next meeting since Director Gracia is not here.
Do I have a second? Okay, so we can proceed. This time the board can discuss nominations before any motion is made. So I will ask for someone to make a motion for...
Sorry. Public safety alert. Red flag warning.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's all right. So I'll look for nominations for board president for a motion and a second. And once we have that, we can proceed to a vote for that office. Would someone like to make a motion?
I would make a motion that President Ortega continue as president.
All right, I have a first. I'll look for a second.
I'll second.
Okay. I have a first from Vice President Bowman and a second from Director Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now we'll look for nominations for Vice President. Similarly, we'll look for a motion. Looks like I'm getting an alert as well. Look for a motion for the office of Vice President as well as a second. And once we have that, we can proceed to a vote.
I'd move to nominate myself for Vice President.
All right. I have a first from Secretary Treasurer McKenna, and I'll look for a second. Okay, without that, we will look for another motion.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Director Bowman for Vice President.
Okay, I have a first from Director Bloomer. I'll look for a second. I'll make that motion. I'll second that motion. So I have a first from Director Bloomer, a second from President Ortega. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
No.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next, we'll look for nominations for Secretary Treasurer. Again, I'll look for a motion and a second, and then we can proceed to a vote.
I would like to nominate Director McKenna for that position. I feel that you have done a phenomenal job the last couple of years looking at all the details. And
I appreciate the nomination, but I will not serve in that role.
Okay. So with that, I will look for a motion to Another motion.
Then I would nominate Director Bloomer.
Okay, I'll have a first from Director or Vice President Bowman, and I'll look for a second, and I'll make that second. So first from Vice President Bowman, second from President Ortega. May we have a vote, please?
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Right, so we can move to the next item, which is item 5 for public comment of items not on today's agenda. This is a time for public comment on items that are not on today's agenda, but relevant to the business of the Desert Water Agency. Members of the public may comment on any item not listed on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the agency. Speakers are requested to keep their comments to no more than 3 minutes. And as provided in the Brown Act, the board is prohibited from acting on items that are not listed on today's agenda. Ms. Baca, have we received any public comments prior to the meeting?
None have been received.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak at this time? Seeing none on the virtual platform and none at the podium, I will move to item 6, which is similarly public comments for items that are listed on today's agenda. Again, we'd ask that members of the public keep their comments to 3 minutes. Are there any public comments for items on today's agenda? No, so we will proceed to item 7, which is the consent calendar. Items listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by one motion of the board without discussion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a board member requests a specific item to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Are there any of the items on today's consent calendar that a director would like to have pulled for further discussion? No, then we'll look for a motion to accept the consent calendar as presented.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent calendar as presented.
Thank you. I'll look for a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So a first from Director Gracia. I'm sorry, Director Gracia. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer, and second from Director McKenna. With that, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 8, action items. Action item A is a request board action regarding application for leave to present late claim on behalf of Event Suppliers Distributor Incorporated. General Manager Johnson, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, President Ortega, members of the board. In the packet, you have a application for leave to present a late claim, which was filed by a law office of Muriel Zahida on behalf of Event Suppliers Distributor, Inc. This is in regard to an incident that occurred in March of 2024. There was a fire hydrant that was hit. It was a hit and run. The water flooded down the street and into a bay, loading bay on a property on the street. The attorney contacted the agency in August regarding this claim. They had a date of March 20th, but apparently the incident occurred on March 19th, which led to some confusion on our end. We didn't have any paperwork that indicated that there was an event that occurred on March 20th. We also did not have an address for the hydrant. Finally, in November, the attorney was able to contact Ms. Baca And through the contact with Ms. Baca, they filed a claim for damages due to this incident. Ms. Baca did reach out to Aqua JPIA, who advised us to send out a untimely claim letter to the law firm, which we did. And in that letter, it said the only recourse for the firm is to submit the application for leave to present a late claim, which they did submit in December, on December 12th. At this time, staff recommends that the Board of Directors reject the application for leave to present a late claim. And once rejected, staff will forward this to Aqua JPIA for their handling. And that concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Okay, thank you. Director McKenna, do you have any questions for our general manager?
Don't we normally approve a late claim application? Is there?
Through the advice of Aqua JPIA, they advise that we send out the untimely claim letter.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
No questions.
Okay. Vice President Bowman?
None from me.
I have a few. So going back to the original confusion that you mentioned in the report, that we didn't have an address and that we didn't have what would you call it? I can't remember the phrase that you used, but I assume it's some sort of incident report from the police department in Cathedral City or regarding the hit and run?
That's correct. We did not have a report from the police or fire department. We do have paperwork on our staff end, which indicated that on the 19th we received a call from the fire department. They had shut off the water. We reported to the scene. It appeared that there was no vehicle present at the time. What appeared to happen is that the riser of the hydrant was hit and it was sheared below grade, and we then made the repairs to the riser and put the hydrant back in place. And we then did not have any contact from anyone until I believe August is when someone reached out to our accounting department. We have an individual who handles these types of situations. That individual looked for that address that was given to them. If there was an incident of that address, which our card does not have that address on it. They then looked for March 20th. There was no indication that anything on March 20th happened. And the attorney then reached back out in September and had some more correspondence, and finally then they were advised to reach out to Ms. Baca, which they did, and Ms. Baca then submitted or gave them the claim form. They filled it out, but we then talked to Aqua JPIA, who said, yeah, it's an untimely claim letter should be sent out to them, and here we are today.
I guess where I'm having a little trouble with this is we may not have had the correct address, but we had an incident report. We may not have had the right date, but they're one off, one March 19th versus March 20th. It seems like a little sloppy to me, and that's where I'm having some issue as far as like making those connections to things that, well, maybe we don't have the right date, but we have one from the day before. and maybe we don't have the right address, but it's a fire hydrant, presumably in Cathedral City, right? I assume so.
That's
The
correct.
address is in Cathedral City, whether it's the proper address or not. So I'm having a little issue with the whole late part, I guess. And I guess that would help me if to know, like, what is Aqua JPIA considered to be late? Is it 6 months from the date of the incident?
I do not know, Ms. Maka, do you know what would be considered?
I believe the government code says 6 months from the date of incident.
So that would have put it into the middle or latter part of September. And you said somebody reached out to us in August, but who is that somebody?
From the records, it was the attorney for the event, the property owner.
So the lateness would have been not the contact, but the actual filing of a form?
That's
right?
correct.
Okay. I see Secretary Treasurer Bloomer nodding her head because she is our JPIA representative. Probably knows a lot more about this than the rest of us, or at least certainly than I do. What were to happen if the board decided not to accept staff's recommendation and to grant the, what are we calling it?
The application to
For
present a late
leave.
claim.
Yeah, what would happen then?
I believe at that time, there would be then, staff would then recommend that the claim be denied. And the board would then elect to either take staff's recommendation or can decide to award the claim. At this time, we do not have a amount of a claim, other than that it exceeds $10,000.
Okay. And if instead we deny the claim and it goes to JPIA,
That's correct.
are we done at that point? Is that totally up to JPIA at that point as far as determining how that will be handled or addressed?
I believe it's my understanding JPIA would then handle.
And we wouldn't have any more say at that point as an
Correct.
agency or as a board?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I could jump in.
Yes,
Excuse me.
please.
Yeah, this is Mike Riddell. First of all, confirming a claim is required by statute to be filed within 6 months. The statute provides that if a claim is not filed within 6 months, then their recourse is to request leave to file a late claim. And the court would consider whether or not there was some negligence on the part of the agency in not providing the information necessary to allow them to file a claim on time. So if the application to file a late claim is denied as recommended by staff, then their recourse would be to go into court and ask the court to grant permission to file the late claim, notwithstanding the board's denial. And then if that were approved, then they would file a late claim, and staff recommendation, and I would concur, would be to deny the claim because the agency did not cause the flooding. Whoever hit the hydrant and ran caused the flooding. So my recommendation, at least to the board, would be to deny the claim because the agency was not negligent. And then of course they could proceed, to file their lawsuit. The matter would be referred to Aqua JPIA. Under their insurance obligations, they would defend that claim. They might compromise it, settle it, but that would require approval by the agency, by the board, in order for them to do that.
Okay. Presumably, this hit and run driver was never apprehended. It was
Yes, that is correct. We have no
okay.
information.
So there's no recourse to that particular person.
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right. Well, unless anyone has any other questions, I will look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve staff's recommendation to reject the application for leave
Thank you.
and forward to JPIA.
All right. I'll look for a second, please.
I will second that.
All right. So I have a first from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer, a second from Director McKenna. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes with Director Grash's absence.
Thank you. Right, so item 8B, request board action regarding claim for damages filed on behalf of Diane Brown. General Manager Johnson,
Yeah.
please.
Thank you, President Ortega. Yeah, this is another claim. The individual, Diane Brown, apparently had some serious injuries, slipped and fell in front of a property on Indian Canyon Drive. According to the complaint, that there was some overflow from sprinklers, which made the sidewalk slippery. And the sidewalk apparently did not have, or it was inadequate friction was on the sidewalk, causing the slip and fall and causing the injuries. Staff is recommending that the Board of Directors reject this claim and instruct staff to refer this matter to Aqua JPIA for handling. Again, so DWA is not responsible for sidewalk maintenance or private irrigation.
All right, thank you. Director McKenna, do you have any questions?
It seems there's a reference to employees of Cathedral City in this claim. Is that just a mistake on their part? Or?
This occurred in Palm Springs.
Right. That's what I thought. But in the Walter Clark letter, it says on page 2, the injury condition caused by negligence of Desert Water Agency's agents, employees, and/or contractors while acting within the scope of their employment with the city of Cathedral City. So is this just a boilerplate letter that they didn't edit properly, or am I confused? It is? All right. That's pretty sloppy. But that's my question. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
No questions.
Okay. Vice President Bowman?
Nothing but an observation. The action item A and now B implies that we own the water and the water causes the problem and therefore we're liable. And of course, that's just, I don't understand that logic at all. It wasn't out in front of our property. It wasn't our sidewalks. Perhaps the city in which the sidewalks reside, they should sue the sidewalk. Anyway, it's befuddling to me. So be careful. We own the water, and if it causes a problem. Anyway, I'm blown away by this.
Just to follow up on that comment, I believe actually the water would have been owned by the California Nursing Home or whatever. I can't remember exactly what it's called because the water had already passed through the meter
That's
at that
correct.
point. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yes.
I don't know about how that works with the hydrant, but I think in this case, and we don't know whether, do we know, actually, let me ask the question, do we know whether the case also involves the property owner or the city of Palm Springs? Or the request?
I suspect that they also received paperwork on this, which would make sense. But this did come to us. This
Sure.
is
Okay.
our claim against us.
All right. I don't have any other comments or questions about it, so I'll look for a motion, please.
I'd like to move staff recommendation.
I'll second.
All right. I have a first from Vice President Bowman and a second from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote?
Director McKenna?
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer?
Aye.
Vice President Bowman?
Aye.
And President Ortega?
Aye.
Motion passes with Director Gracia absent.
Thank you. Next, we have 8C, request authorization for board attendance at the California Municipal Utilities Association event. General Manager Johnson.
Yes, so this, thank you, President Ortega. The California Municipal Utilities Association event is on February 3rd of 2025. In your packet, there's agenda items of that event. And at this time, staff recommends that the board review this event and decide whether to approve and authorize those board members who are interested in attending this event in service to the board. Deadline for hotel group room rate is January 10th, and travel dates will also need to be recommended and approved.
Thank you. Director McKenna, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
No questions.
All right. Vice President Bowman.
None from me?
Okay, I have a few. Questions first, and then maybe a couple of comments. So as I understand it, we're not members of this association, although there are many water agencies that are members of this association. So I'd be curious to hear from Ms. Yort, perhaps, about what the benefits of our joining that might be for the future. I understand there might be an issue of cost as membership, but you can maybe elaborate on that a little bit.
Sure. Good morning, President Ortega and members of the board. So we did inquire about membership with CMUA, and it did come back to be costly. It's about just under $10,000 for the remainder of the year. There are benefits that we could see in joining. They are similar to Aqua in that they are very heavy in advocacy. So CMUA is not just water, it's also energy. So they do have a dual purpose. They have staff members that specialize in both. The current president of the board is, oh my gosh, I can't remember his last name, but Craig, the general manager from Western. And then the vice chair is also a water representative. And so I believe that there would be merits to join the group, but due to its cost and also the similarities to Aqua, I think participating as non-members allows us the same benefits where it makes sense. One of those events is this particular event, CMUA Capital Day. It's not that much more than the member price. And as staff does plan to attend that event and participate. I don't know if you have any further questions from that.
Yeah, it seemed like this really is a focus on legislation or legislators in state, at the state capitol. It's a one-day event. There's time for meeting with legislators. It is the new session just started yesterday. So I kind of look at it as an opportunity to get there early. I mean, there's that opportunity later on in May with CSDA, but that's another 3+ months afterward.
If I may, so what our plan is as staff would be to go to the event and have our meetings as well on Tuesday. We've been talking with Bob, our state lobbyist, and organizing a full slate of meetings, not just with the elected officials, but also see if there's any committee consultants that we should be meeting with. We were also trying to meet with representatives from the governor's office in the fall that we couldn't, so we're hoping to do that. So it'll be a full slate of meetings as well the following day.
Yeah, the challenge there at the moment is that we have a board meeting scheduled that Tuesday. So if we were to do that and members of this board wanted to participate, then we really would have to move that meeting date in order to allow for a quorum, or potentially allow for a quorum, unless it was only 2 of us that went and the other 3 stayed here. Did you?
Could participate virtually because
Oh.
we're, and Mike Riddell can correct me if I'm wrong, but if we're on
Oh, right.
agency business,
That's true.
you can participate virtually
Yep.
in the board
And we
meeting
could schedule
in the morning.
meetings around
That's
that timeframe.
a good point. Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. Okay, those were my questions. Thank you. So I'll look for a motion to something. There's no staff recommendation necessarily.
I think in light of having meetings on Tuesday, the 4th, that I would move recommendation that we approve that board members can attend in service to the board and that the travel dates be Sunday, February 2nd and Tuesday, February 4th, because I believe the conference starts on
Monday morning.
Monday morning.
Okay, thank you. I have a first. I'll look for a second.
I would second that.
Okay, great. So I have a first from Secretary Treasurer Bloomer and a second from Director McKenna. May we have a roll call vote?
Can you just repeat what the travel dates were, please?
February 2nd and February 4th.
So the
There's a
Sun-
Southwest flight,
Yeah.
a night flight on Tuesday.
Yeah, Sunday and Tuesday.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Director McKenna,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye,
Motion passes with Director Grosh's absence noted.
thank you. Item 9 is a discussion item, 9A, Net Zero Energy Plan Discussion. General Manager Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, President Ortega. There is no staff report for this, but this was an item that President Ortega asked to be placed on the agenda, and based on Director McKenna's comments that occurred at our past board meeting. So at this time, what would like to do is have a discussion regarding a net zero energy plan, if that's something that the board is interested in pursuing, and giving any guidance to staff at this time, or if the board decides that it's not something that they don't want to pursue at this time, that's also an option. But currently at this time, we can have that discussion. I can say that staff has looked at some of the ideas that Director McKenna has mentioned. We did some investigation on if we took our standard well site, how could we make that well site independent from Edison? And what we determined that our typical well site uses around 7,000 kilowatt hours of energy. And to offset that, we would need to have solar panels. We calculated we would need about 6,000 panels to generate enough power for the daytime. And then, of course, solar only lasts during the day. At nighttime, you would have to have another energy source, which we would have our, we looked at the Tesla Megapacks, and we determined that we would need 2 Megapacks. And in order to accomplish this work, we would need around 6 acres of land per well site. Very challenging for us. Most of all of our well sites are on limited space. We do not have 6 acres surrounding each site. The option then would be is that potentially could we look for land outside somewhere, a lot of open space, to put a solar field and then run power to each individual well site. That would be, I think, a challenge. Number one, to find that much land, and then to run to each well site. I think as far as my opinion would be right now is Edison has been mandated to go to more green power, and I think by 2040 or 2045, I believe that they're to have almost 100% of green power as their as a source. I may be wrong on that, but I know that they have been mandated to have more green power. By using Edison's power, we are utilizing a green power source. It is a more expensive source of power. I would think, I perceive that what we need to do at this agency is to ensure that we are operating our system the most efficient way possible, ensuring that our motors are clean, baked, and dipped, that we put cameras down our well casings to ensure that the louvers are clean and so forth, so that we have the most efficient sites as possible. That's where I would focus my energy on, which we do now. I would just continue that program. We do have solar that runs our recycled water plant and our operations center here. We should continue to keep those systems up and running. The site that the solar system field that operates our operations center was built in 2005, so it's 20 years old. We will need to invest in the inverters. Those are we still are using the original inverters, which we were told they would last around 10 to 12 years. However, we put them in an air-conditioned building. Therefore, we preserved them. They've lasted almost 25 years or 20 years now. I believe the panels are still efficient. So we should invest in having the inverters replaced and continue those systems. And at this time, I will just ask the board if they have any questions and to continue this discussion.
Thank you. So we'll start with questions for the general manager, and then we'll move to discussion. And I'll start with Director McKenna.
Yeah, I think some of the analysis that I've done, I saw with well 43 that our utility cost had increased by more than tripled in the last 5 years. Do you have any assessment or guesswork that what might happen in the next 5 years?
Power prices continue to go up. I will say that they most likely will continue to escalate. And I think that is something that it's always been a challenge for us as a water agency. Energy is probably our number one, besides the state water project side of things, as far as locally, power is our most expensive endeavor. And I think that Edison is challenged by having to go to a cleaner source of power through solar and so forth. It's a more expensive source of energy, and therefore we'll just have to continue to pay those prices. The key, though, is to ensure that we have efficient equipment at our sites. That is, and that we're running sites that are the most efficient sites, which we currently that is how we operate. Is we do evaluations, we do pump testing, we evaluate our sites, and then as a site, as the efficiency wears down, we will then look at that site and determine, why is this site not as efficient? What's going on? Is the motor, how old is the motor? We need to put the cameras down, the casings to look at what's going on down below. And that is key to ensuring that we have the most efficient equipment out there, and we should continue to invest our money in that.
I don't have any argument with what you said, and I think you're excellent at getting efficiency, bang for the buck, if you like. I guess the problem I have is that last month we spent $463,000 on Edison, which is about $20 per customer. They put 264 tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, generating that electricity based on their own mix. If energy costs were to do the next 5 years what they've done in the last 5 years, every one of our customers would be sending $60 a month to Edison. I think it's an intolerable situation. This is a business enterprise, a nonprofit business, public entity, but it is an enterprise. And our largest controllable cost is energy. And we are not controlling it. We're letting Edison do that. And they are gaming the system through the regulatory process to transfer all of their costs to distribution rather than generation. Generation is now so cheap that generators are giving electricity away between noon and 4 p.m. They're paying Edison to take it, especially these wind turbines, which get a federal subsidy of 31 cents per kilowatt hour for every kilowatt hour they make. It's not their tax credit is not based on the cost of the turbine. It's based on how much electricity it makes, and you get it forever. So they can give electricity to Edison. They can pay Edison 20 cents a kilowatt hour to take it because they'll still make money. So Edison is not passing that savings on to us. They are transferring all of their base expenses to distribution. We will continue to pay distribution if we buy electricity from Edison, even if they get it for free. They'll still be charging us 30 cents a kilowatt hour. Some of our sites, we're now paying 60 cents a kilowatt hour, 57, I think, for well 43, because the demand charges are so high. It's the peak load that we put on there when the pump starts up. We pay for that every week of every month for the next year. And that's why these costs are so high. We have got to deal with this primary expense that this business has. It has to be challenged. It has to be dealt with. It's not the business you're in. I understand it's not your knitting. You're great at getting bang for the buck and running an efficient water system. But we have to address where we get this energy from. And it's not just an economic necessity to stop our customers paying these huge amounts of money. It's a moral and ethical imperative. We have to tackle this problem. And that's why I've been saying, I'm repeating myself. If you look at my director's comments for the last 4 months, I've been saying we've got to deal with this problem. In that 4 months, we spent another $2 million to Edison. The technology I'm talking about, admittedly, it's tricky, it's difficult, yes. But there were federal subsidies available. They may not be next year, but they're available now to buy this stuff, to install this stuff. It's a win-win-win situation. And if we don't have the expertise in-house, and I'm pretty sure we don't, maybe we should hire a consultant, but we have to deal with this problem.
All right, Director Bloomer, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Vice President Bowman?
Yeah, I have several points. First of all, I appreciate Director McKenna's passion on this, and I concur with many of the ideas. And as a district, I feel that if we don't have a staff person looking at some of the items that Director McKenna has suggested, I believe we should consider that and or a consultant. Because if we can get ahead of the curve, we're better off, completely better off than just business as usual and being as efficient as we are as a district. Are there other alternatives? And we know that technology is constantly changing and growing. And to stay up on it, just ask our technology transformation committee that the work that Esther and her team has done to bring DWA into a more modern environment. So I believe we need to document somehow, perhaps in our general plan, our specific plan, a vision that it is our goal to look at any and all forms of new technology coming down that would aid us in keeping the bill to our customer as low as possible. such a document or such a type of a documentation could then be a catalyst for change, for new things, new ideas, thinking outside the box. I mean, just think if Mr. Fusion was built, we could have Mr. Fusion at every site. And of course, that's a silly statement to make. But then again, we're holding in our hands more power than it took to get the man on the moon. So it's going to happen. Something is going to happen. And if we had people that were looking at it, and that was part of our passion as a district, I think that would be really, really good. So I guess I'd like to hear staff say, yeah, these sounds like good ideas. And as we look at our specific plan, that we fold into that specific plan these current ideas.
Yeah,
And work hard to figure out how to do it or to figure out how not to do it and what next to do.
Before we proceed, can I just clarify? When you say specific plan, do you mean strategic plan?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I will say our general plan used to have an energy component within that plan. It was removed a couple plans ago for the reasons why I do not know that. And what that section looked at was, what are your current status of electricity? How much are you paying for your electricity? And then how Edison used to have their tariffs was there was SOP periods, which was super off-peak times and so forth. And it looked, our general plan looked at how can we run our wells in a manner that would take advantage of the Edison rates and not be hit with those high charges during those peak hours. What we can do is add back into the general plan a energy component again, looking at energy and potential alternatives to energy. Another what we can also do is, if the board would like, is we can have an RFP prepared for a consultant firm who specializes in evaluating systems like ours on and how we may better utilize other sources of power. And if the board would like to do that, we can prepare an RFP on that. And of course, at that time, we'll get some pricing and we'll know how much it will cost for someone to take that evaluation. And we could come back to the board, and then if the board would like to move forward with that, again, we would have to look to see what our budget is and so forth. We may need to augment our budget on that. I don't know, but that is an option if the board would like to do that too.
So I wasn't quite done yet, but I
gonna
appreciate
ask
your
you
comments.
I was going to ask you if you were done.
Thank you, thank you. And I hope staff realizes that this is not a criticism of staff at all. And I feel a little defensiveness coming from staff, and I want to say we're all on the same team. We're pushing the ball forward, and an idea such as this is not to be a criticism, but an opportunity for all of us to step out and grow and to figure it out. And I like your idea of a consultant that the staff could have or use to kind of flesh out the reality or fantasy of this whole thing. But I do concur with Director McKenna. The electric rates are getting more and more expensive. And I personally have a solar system on my house that I upgraded and doubled it because I wanted to keep my electric cost fixed. And that might not be realistic for our district, but we don't know that. And so, no criticism on my part, and let's say, hey, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. We got to figure this out, do a little bit better.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. I know I had said at the beginning that we would do questions and then comments or discussion, and it seems like we've sort of melded those two together. So I want to actually go back to Secretary Treasurer Bloomer to give her the opportunity, since,
I followed the rules.
yeah, I know you did.
questions.
Okay, but do you have some comments that you'd like to make?
I just want to say, I totally agree that we need to look at possibilities of where we could create more efficiencies with electricity. And I think the RFP for a consultant to come in and look at everything is a good idea, because we don't know until we know. I think that our obstacle is going to be that we're a very old system and we're in neighborhoods, and the idea of having 6 acres around our well site is, most well sites is impossible without displacing people. So it'll be interesting to get the consultant to come in and look at what is possible around the well sites. Yeah, so I'm interested to see what that looks like and create more, more efficiencies. And I think the other thing that I had heard, I don't know who told me this, but even if we got all solar and battery and everything, that we might still have to have Edison as a backup if anything goes wrong. And I know their fees for that one-time backup startup becomes cost prohibitive also. So there's that. I mean, there's pros and cons to everything. So I think that the consultant would probably, hopefully, include all that information as well, so we can get a total picture. But I like the idea of the RFP for the consultant.
Yeah, I think that's, if I can.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you. I think it seems to me that the consensus is to put out an RFP, not only looking at and what I'm hearing several things, so I'm trying to summarize what I'm hearing, and hopefully it's a fair summary. It involves improved efficiencies of our operation, I think. It also involves looking at other sources of energy outside of Edison, some that might be created by us, or some facilities that we lease or own or operate in some manner might be another source as well, I suppose. I mean, those are the kinds of things I think are on the table as far as a thorough analysis of where we can improve our operations in terms of the amount of power that we use, and how we plan for that over the next, 5-10 years or something, as well as the energy purchase of energy and the creation of energy to run those systems. Is that a fair?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying, I have solutions, but identifying what I think is a major structural problem for this agency in the future, and I think we should get ahead of it now rather than wait 5 years and just be, buried in debt because we can't afford to get out of it. I want to say something else on the issue of the 6 acres. We have a lot of well sites along the wash. And the wash is empty. It's also under the control of the Coachella Valley Water District. Maybe we should talk to about some kind of joint venture. They will face the same problem. Their power purchase agreement with IID runs out in 2 years. So, and they're dependent on Edison in some places. Now, there should be an opportunity to cooperate with them. They've got the space. We've got the need. We could put solar panels over the wash easily. Another thing I noticed recently, that local municipalities are building Coachella Valley Link all the way from 111 down to Indio. It runs past several of our wells, I think a half a dozen of them. And it could use some shade. It would be lovely to have some shade structures along there with solar panels on top. a nice artistic design, have a competition, or we call Diego Calatrava, and we could find ourselves with a tourist attraction. But there are creative possibilities that we haven't looked at, we haven't thought about, and I really would like to open the door. An RFP is a great way to do it. We could even do a pilot project, that well 43, which sits in the middle of nowhere. Lots of space around that one. Let's develop the technology, but an RFP is a great way to start. Let's find out, who can bring us ideas that we haven't thought of here today. But this is a problem. It's very fundamental to the future of this agency. Let's call it DWA 3.0 if you like. But if you look ahead, you see that there is this huge, huge problem coming at us, and I think we should get on it now. Thanks.
Any other comments for our general manager?
Yeah, as if it seems like we are having consensus on having a consultant or an outsider, my request would be to not only look at Aqua's people, but look outside of Aqua. Look out at somebody that is doing things for other huge businesses that have energy needs, not necessarily in the water world, because we look, in other words, turn over all the stones of possibility for these people to help us out. But I want to thank staff for being responsive. I want to thank Director McKenna for bringing it up. And because I'm happy with it. Okay.
All right, so just as a follow-up then, you'll be coming back to us at some point.
Yeah, the one question I then have is, would the board like to see the draft RFP prior to us sending it to the consultants, just so to ensure that we're covering what the board would like to see covered through the RFP?
I think it's a discussion item, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, then item 10 is our Secretary Treasurer's report. Not sure who will be delivering that or if we should leave that.
I have it right here.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you, Director McKenna.
Posthumous one. These are our highlights for November 2024. And the operating fund received $3.9 million in water sales revenue, $56,000 in recycled water sales revenue receipts, and $391,000 in construction deposits. I'm rounding all these numbers, by the way. We received $817,000 in accounts receivable from the City of Palm Springs for the turf rebate program cost share agreement. We have $80,000 in miscellaneous receipts for a maintenance bond item from Lennar Homes. We have $41,000 in miscellaneous receipts for vehicle trade-in reimbursement. We paid $4.7 million in accounts payable. Our year-to-date water sales are 5% over budget, revenue 9% over budget, and expenses 14% under budget. We did try to tighten the budget, but we always seem to do better. There were 23,648 active potable water accounts, which is an increase of 39 on the month. There were 25 accounts turned off for non-payment in November, and that is average for a month. In the general fund, we received $2.4 million in replenishment assessments. $2.3 million came from us, and private pumpers $141,000. $162,000 was received from Coachella Valley Water District as State Water Project cost share. We received $50,000 in State Water Project refunds, and we received $23,000 from the much maligned Southern California Edison for whitewater hydro that we generated. We paid $1.1 million in State Water Project charges, making a year-to-date total of $10.2 million. On the wastewater fund, we received $236,000 in wastewater revenue receipts and paid $227,000 in accounts payable. I think that's the first time that's ever been in profit. As sewer accounts, we had 2,245 active accounts and a decrease of 4 entering the month. That's a complete report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the Secretary Treasurer's report? No? All right. Then we'll move on to item 11, which is the general manager's report.
All right, thank you, President Ortega. First item is regarding the state water project allocation. So on December 23rd, DWR announced that the allocation would go from 5% to 15%. So it's a 10% increase, which is, we'll take anything they can give us at this time, and that's based on the storms that we saw back in late November and early December. Next item is regarding our office here. We are going to do some renovation work at the front counter. And due to that work, we're going to close our lobby starting tomorrow, January 8th, through the end of January. If individuals need to make a payment, they can drop off their payment at our drop-off box, which is located out in the parking lot. There will also be a number that if someone needs to make an appointment, whether it's a developer or a customer, they can call and we will arrange to meet with them here in the office, and we'll have staff meet them outside and lead them into engineering conference room at that point and have a discussion with them. So the information is on our website. We'll also have signs posted. We've had signs posted on our lobby windows. But wanted to let the board know that this is happening, and it's important that we do this to ensure that the counter, it's all part of the IT work that we're doing. The desks and the drawers need to be modified to ensure that they can work with the system. So that's regarding the lobby renovation work. January 20th, the offices will be closed for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. In our system leak data, 22 leaks over a couple week period, and just a couple streets that are on the replacement design schedule. For those 22 leaks, we had just over 132 labor hours to make those repairs. Regarding activities and meetings, again, just my tribal mediation work. There's some DCP coordination meetings and state water contractor meetings there in late December. We had our executive committee meeting on the 2nd, and then our DWA CBWD MWD coordination call on the 6th. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Director McKenna, do you have any questions for Mr.
No,
Johnson?
thank you.
Thanks. Secretary Treasurer
No questions.
I didn't even get your name out yet. You were like,
No questions.
Vice President Bowman. Okay. I do have a couple of questions. Well, a question having to do with the lobby. So we have a board meeting during that period. How will people get into the boardroom?
On that day, we will have access to the boardroom through the lobby, and it'll be business as usual on that particular day as regarding the board meeting. The counter will still be closed, but individuals will be able to come through the lobby into the boardroom.
And when directors have, for example, committee meetings that they're going to be attending during that period, what will the arrangement be then?
You can call Secretary Baca or myself arrange, we can come in through the side door.
Okay. All right, that's it for me. So
right.
I guess we can move to item 12, which is director's reports on meetings and events attended on behalf of the agency. Director McKenna.
The only thing I have in my calendar is I attended the employee holiday party on December 17th. And that was it.
All right. Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
Nothing.
Vice President Bowman.
Executive Committee on the 2nd.
Right. And that's all I've done as well. So we can move to item 13, which would be comments and requests from the directors. Director McKenna, do you have any comments or requests?
Just delighted that we are finally making taking some interest and making some progress on the energy situation. Thank you.
Secretary Treasurer Bloomer.
No comments or requests.
Okay. Vice President Bowman.
I flew out of here and I looked at the settling ponds from the air, and they seem to be empty. Is that because Met is no longer, or for the time being, not?
That is correct. Yeah, water was shut off in early December and planned to have no deliveries through March.
Right.
Okay. All right. And I have nothing else. So with that, we can move into closed session. I see 6 minutes after 9 o'clock. If we could be in the boardroom at 9:15 for closed session. Thank you very much. Great. Welcome back into open session. I can report that no actionable items were taken during the closed session, and that we can now adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.